Call this public meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table resolution number 127, 2022.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table resolution number 127 of 2022. This piece of legislation is being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote. This resolution is a contract with Fitch & Associates to perform a feasibility study for emergency management services within the city of Scranton. It had been tabled to allow council to ask how long the contract would last for. We did get a response back that it would be for 9 months from the execution of the contract. Anyone on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A. Minutes of the Scranton Municipal Recreation Authority Board of Directors meetings held in June, July, August, and September 2022. 3B. Overtime review for all departments as provided by City Controller, October 4th, 2022, for the period January through September 2022. 3C. Correspondence received October 4th, 2022 from OECD regarding code enforcement report for City Council. 3D. Lackawanna College 2022 schedule for Chick Feldman Field received October 3rd, 2022 from Scranton City Parks and Recreation Director Marissa Duffy. 3E, insurance certificate received from OCD ARPA Director Eileen Cipriani, October 5th, 2022, regarding contract with the Institute to perform Scranton ARP programmatic evaluation services. 3F, minutes of the Scranton Redevelopment Authority regular meeting held September 7th, 2022. 3G, minutes of the Civil Service Commission meeting held September 6, 2022.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
Yeah, I just have one comment on third order items. I see in item 3G, the minutes of the Civil Service Commission, there were some retest questions that were asked during that meeting. Mr. Voldenberg, could we send correspondence to the administration as well as the Civil Service Commission to find out if there's an update on any testing issues that have occurred and if there's going to be any retests? Because I think there were issues there that needed to be cleared up.
I will, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have a few. Number one, I want to thank Scranton Police Department, DPW, and all the volunteers that were involved with the Steamtown Marathon this past weekend. It was a huge success. We had over 1,000 runners registered, about 874 runners started the race in Forest City, and 865 finished the race. And it was just a great community event that involved 14 communities, and the culmination with the finish line here on North Washington Avenue, and after we pay all of our bills, we'll figure out how much we're going to be able to donate to St. Joseph Center. We've raised $2.1 million in the first 24 years, so we're hoping to increase that. But to put on an event of this magnitude requires a tremendous amount of collaboration, cooperation, and volunteerism because we have no paid staff. And I'm talking up and down the line. Every EMT company, every volunteer fire company, the police departments in Carbondale and Forest City and Vanling, all the way down through Peckville and Troop and Dixon City and Mayfield and German, all those communities cooperated, and along with our own city. So, and we had runners from 35 states and 5 countries. So it was a nice representation. A lot of people came and stayed at our hotels, ate at our restaurants. So it was a nice economic benefit to the city as well as a huge benefit for St. Joseph Center. So, and it's promoting health and fitness, which is a great thing. So, just want to thank everyone that was involved to help make that happen. I also want to announce that there's going to be a tire recycling event at 101 West Poplar Street in Scranton on Saturday, October 15th from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. Fees for collection will be all residential tires are $4 per tire. Tires with rims will be $10 per tire. Tires with water, mud, or debris, $5 per tire. No industrial-sized tires will be accepted. On-site contact number is 570-348-4180, extension 15. For non-Scranton residents, Lackawanna Countywide Tire Collection, October 14th to October 24th. This is a residential and non-commercial event, and those people can call 570-963-2017. And the last thing I'd like to announce is just congratulations to Kyle and his wife, Mary Kate, on the delivery of their new little baby on Saturday, Claire Helen. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's all.
Do any other council members have any announcements?
I have a couple. First, I just wanted to recognize that today is National Coming Out Day, which is a day to celebrate coming out and to build awareness and visibility for the LGBTQ community. I know I don't have to point out that I'm an out lesbian sitting here on council, but it's still important too, because by one person coming out or living their life out, it could help a lot of other people. So I'm happy to do that. And I wanted to mention that the Deutsch Institute is having a champagne celebrity brunch that will be taking place on Sunday, October 30th, and that will be at St. Mary's Center on Mifflin Avenue downtown. And this will be, it's $30 for adults. It's going to be honoring Joyce Tressler and the late Roseanne Novembrino. And I believe it's starting at 10 a.m. If anyone's interested in purchasing tickets, you could call the Deutsch Institute at 570-348-1968 or email them at support@deutschinstitute.org. And there will be some tickets available at the door. And lastly, I just wanted to mention the city's wellness program that Dr. Saxena, our public health coordinator, has been running. And they've been doing wellness programs throughout the city at housing developments. I had the chance today to be able to go to the one that took place at the Adams High Rise downtown here, and it was a great opportunity. They had a lot of people come through today. We've been able to partner with the University of Scranton, actually with their physical therapy department, in order to perform blood pressure and vital checks and fall risk prevention screening. Other partners included the Scranton Primary Health Care Center, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, United Neighborhood Centers, Child Hunger Outreach Partners, Maternal and Family Health Services, and Friends of the Poor. And so it's been really great opportunity, I think, for the city to partner with those different organizations and to provide resources and screenings for people within their housing developments and places that they live. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other council members have any announcements? Like Councilman King mentioned, my wife and I were thrilled to welcome our baby girl, Claire Helen, into the world on Saturday night. She's happy, she's healthy. We brought her home yesterday. Her big sister is struggling to adjust a little bit, but she's getting there. But, once again, I was reminded that I do believe my wife is Superwoman, and I'm just extremely lucky to have her by my side. So I just want to thank her for everything she's done for not only me, but for both of our girls. And then secondly, the the Scranton Recreation Authority is hosting a pet food and pet accessory drive to benefit local shelters. That will take place at the Naog Park Community Room on November 5th and 6th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. They're looking for food for cats and kittens, food for dogs and puppies, and then any supplies such as, whether it's toys, cat litter, and such. They will also accept cash donations or gift card donations from Amazon, and that is reminder, that's November 5th and 6th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day at the community room at Naog. Mr. Voldenberg?
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
First on the list is Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. Item 6A, the DPW contract. Did you get any specific numbers on that contract from the administration in terms of what the salary increases and other costs equate to?
We didn't. We're hoping to receive that to put into third order for next week.
Okay, all right. Because I'd like to see, the salary increases for at least for this year, since it affects this year's budget, and the pension plan. There are contributions that the city is making, which brings me to, what is the status of the other union contract negotiations?
It's my understanding they're still under negotiation.
When those come forward, the administration should also give hard numbers, not simply that, we're giving them competitive wages, and then what does that 2% translate, or that 3%, or whatever the number might be. And any progress on the 2021 audit?
Not that I'm aware of. Mr. Schuster, do you have any?
Since last week, I think I did see some correspondence. Someone reached out to say, hey, let's get this meeting back together to re-energize the group and continue the discussion. But other than that...
Yeah, you're only 5 weeks out from having the draft of the budget, so when I die, I want on my tombstone the following epitaph: show me the money, because that's what an audit is, and that's why we should have visibility and transparency on how money is spent.
I've been making my attempts to stay on top of that.
Which brings me to an article in the Times on the 6th of October. Businesses sued for late taxes. Scranton Tax Office is going after people who are delinquent on their business privilege and mercantile taxes. Kathy Wexler is getting aggressive, and well, she should. Which then brings me to my next comment. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we have the database for the refuse and garbage fees on the city website. But that's a static document. It's as of the 1st of August. It's not current information. But we should have on the city's website the databases not only for that, but property taxes and the business privilege mercantile tax, and the new payroll preparation tax. All that information should be right on the city's website. And I know it'll take time for them to get that ball moving, but that's what the citizens need to know. That's what the taxpayers need to know. Because ultimately, it's the taxpayers and the citizens that provide oversight of their government. If they don't, then they get what they deserve, which is usually a bad deal.
And I know they are working on making that more of a living document, I guess.
But all the taxes and all the fees
Yeah, but
should
I
be,
mean, for the refuse, definitely, but to my
Yeah.
point there then too, it's, the complication right now is just making sure the systems are able to talk to each other to stay up to date on that.
Okay. Item 5C, PMA Management Self-Insurance Compensation Contract. I saw in the backup that it's $74,000 a year, and then in the contract from PMA, it says $77,000, which is the correct number.
74, so we did ask about that. There will be additional backup in that legislation for next week that we received today.
Okay.
And, you know, the email did say the contract had been negotiated down from the original bid of 77K
Okay,
flat fee to
that's fine.
74.
And how many years will that contract run?
3 years.
Okay. And item 5I, the middle mile broadband program. It said the deadline was September 30th for application. That got extended?
That was a question that we were going to ask tonight.
Yep. Now that needs to be, over time, almost 100% as of the end of September. And Lackawanna College, nothing after October 6th for them to be playing on Chick Feldman Field?
So there is going to be an updated schedule released.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Les Spindler.
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident. When I was here 2 weeks ago, I talked about our corner again getting fixed by DPW. And Councilman Donahue, you said that you had a response and you would talk about it in fifth order. I stayed and listened and you didn't talk about it.
I apologize.
So do you have any?
So I believe it was put, Mr. Voldenberg, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was put on their list and their plan was to get out there. I'll follow up with them again.
I've been hearing that since last year. It's on the list.
I'm just telling you what, that's
We're
what,
getting towards the cold weather again, and I have no faith it's going to get fixed this year.
yes. I'll follow up again with you, or with them tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, you're not going to be happy with me now, but I was away last week. I had to be out of town. And I was told that you guys beat up on Ron Hellman pretty good. I'm not here to say that what he said a few weeks ago was correct, but according to the United States Constitution, we can come up here and say almost anything we like. And council rules do not supersede the U.S. Constitution. An example is, during the administration, me and a lot of other people came to this podium, and when Judy Gatelli was council president, she tried to silence us. ACLU was contacted, came to these meetings, and I think it might have even been taken to court, and we won. And they said, we can come here and say almost anything we want to. You can't threaten people or anything like that, and I'm not saying what Ron said was right, but Councilwoman Rothchild, you said 2 weeks ago you're 50% Jewish. Well, I'm 100% Jewish. And I had people that were in the family members that were in the Holocaust, and I took it with a grain of salt. If you want to sit up there, you have to have thick skin. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And like I said, the ACLU said we can come up here and say almost anything. I said, you might not agree with it, you might not like it, but you have to put up with it. And
Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should either.
I'm not saying, but
Okay.
But the United States Constitution says, and the ACLU came and they told us we could do that. I mean, I wouldn't say stuff like that, but if somebody wants to, that's their prerogative. And like I said, council rules do not supersede the U.S. Constitution. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Ron Ellman.
Yes, hello, Council. If I had said last week to council, I assume you assumed my words were of great interest. I imagine each of you would think I was some kind of fool or jackass or something for assuming anything you assume. This would involve reading one's mind. But in the editorial, a professional puts in writing, he assumes what I assume. I think he needs his head examined for putting such nonsense in writing. And then he calls me ignorant. I think it was 2 weeks ago, there was a heartbreaking little article in the paper about the Peters family. I don't know if any of you noticed it. It was a little short thing in the middle of the paper. Mr. Peters is 75 years old and financially embarrassed, I guess is a good word, and was looking for a position, and his health isn't the best. Here is an American, people, an American that it seems like we're forgotten about. He's achieved the American dream, his home, and he's on the verge of losing it. Well, a short distance away, just as in the very same area, are 10 people on welfare, 6 kids in school, don't speak English so they can't work. This is their American dream. You know, we can thank all the bleeding hearts for this. You people, most of you don't know it, I am a deplorable dyslexic. I know it's a bad defense, but I so often have problems with I see things backwards, upside down, sideways and all. I think that's why I misread what I had written down a couple weeks ago. But in a couple short weeks, I guess we'll see what kind of America the people want. An immigrant America or America like it used to be. And let me tell you something. Last week, I went to have a couple cocktails. I could have sat there for the rest of the night and people would have bought me drinks that saw this program with what I said. Those are Americans, whether you like to hear it or not.
We're all Americans,
that's
Mr.
the
Elman.
America that I believe in and I came from and that I hope we go back to. I don't know what you were going to say.
I said we're all Americans, Mr. Elman.
I'm trying not to be controversial or get in any problem for you. This isn't America no more. And while I'm at it, I wish council would look up the Gas and Diesel Act of 2008 about parking and working on anything over 10,000 pounds. It's forbidden. My neighbor used it against me, but it doesn't seem like I can use it against tractor trailers parked in my neighborhood. I got 3 of them now.
Are they back, Mr. Elman?
I didn't hear.
Are they back? Are the tractor trailers back? I know they were moved.
I was told that this is a city code.
Okay, we'll pass that on to the police department,
right,
because I know
thank
they
you.
went out and ticketed them and moved them a few weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Rick Little.
Hi, I'm Rick Little from Scranton. I always been wondering why isn't the mayor here? That's just throwing that out. It seems like there's a divide, and because I've been asking for years, like going back 7 years, like who runs this place, that place, and I call 311, no one gets back to me. Anyway, I was here a few weeks ago talking about a right to know thing where we'd all get to find out who knows what, and I sent the right to know to Scranton Housing Authority, and they denied everything. And so I have a feeling that the city of Scranton and the county of Lackawanna are what they call third-party interest in all this. And I'd like to, I don't know if this is proper, but I appealed their thing today. Can I turn in papers here to some sort of law department?
So the city does have a right to know officer. We could get you that person's information.
No, I've already been through that. What's her name? And she referred me, we have to go. It's all explained here in the appeal. I'd like to give the appeal. It isn't docketed yet, but just to give you more time to look at it.
You didn't file the appeal yet?
I filed it, I mailed it today.
Okay. But if you mailed it, I don't know what.
It's undocketed yet, but
Where did you appeal it to?
Harrisburg.
Okay. So
And are you the lawyer for the city?
no, I'm just trying to help
Attorney
you out
Gallagher
here.
is a solicitor for counsel. He's
Right.
not the city solicitor.
I didn't understand.
Solicitor means lawyer, right?
Yes.
He's the council's lawyer. He's
Well,
not.
I don't know. I have the appeal, and in legal matters, I mean, they're saying I'm just harassing them. But definitely, the city has.
Do you have a
interest-
copy yourself?
What?
Do you have a copy of that yourself? Okay. I don't know what.
To the right person. because-
Well, if you appealed it to Harrisburg, that's the right person.
Right, but if you're a third-party interest.
Mr. Little, could
We
you
don't-
please? Thank you.
This is just a courtesy thing.
Yeah, no
to
problem.
give you time to look at it, because I believe they are serious interests of Lackawanna County, the way they run Scranton Housing. They have a manager who only has a first name, and they delegate all this stuff, and there's no record of anything. And they've been evicting people, lots of people, including me. And the courts aren't running right. They're not using the Pennsylvania criminal procedure. I know this because I learned the law in New York State going through my working in the family courts. Courts are a business. And what I've seen happening is great abuse of the elderly, who are the greatest population in downtown Scranton, is elderly people. And it seems like this SHA agency, which I'm trying to run for board commission there and work it out in the system, rather than sue them in federal court or something like that, which I am capable of doing. But I love the city, and I just like to see it like work out. And one last thing, Pope Francis in the AP talked about German Nazi concentration camps, but he used the word lager, Lager, just like Yingling beer, lager. I think a lot of words in the whole freedom of speech thing, words like equality, democracy, are just over-drilled. You know, too many people think they know what this means or that means.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Your 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Next on the list, Dave Dobson.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident. Okay, let me get this open here. I should have opened it before. I do think about 2 weeks ago I mentioned the property on Mulberry Street across the court from the fire station. I think it's worth looking into, and maybe I'll mention it again someday. Audits. I think we should start announcing the people and organizations of the city government that are tardy. And a few weeks ago, a Lackawanna football team came up. I would prefer that Lackawanna College spends their money on students instead of football. I know somebody that attended there with a medical assistant course, and all they had was a rubber arm to practice to draw blood from. And in order to certify as a phlebotomist, you need to have a clinical. So they really need to find other things other than sports, as they're probably, it would take them another 25 years to get big enough to even play on a real field. Before we talk anymore about swimming pools or things like that, we should be worried about the contracts. And, you know, we have to know what we have left after to do anything. And voting's coming up. Personal recommendation, vote down any Pennsylvania amendments to the Constitution. They're all a bunch of phooey. That's just going to throw it in the hands of the legislature so they can argue back and forth forever. While people drop over from COVID or something like that, they just overruled the governor's ability to, on a COVID declaration for masks or whatever. Now you wonder where people get their ideas from. Now I'm concerned about undocumented aliens and what have you, but and refugees. 50 years ago, a lot of progressive people wanted to start funding under UNICEF family planning for the third world. And the population continued to grow because certain groups were against it. And it was immoral, it was this, it was that. And now the population's doubled, and we have climate problems, and we have wars, and we have, what have you, people like Eric or Victor Boot flying around in his C-130 transport selling AK-47s to everybody under the sun. Here's an article I've seen. Flynn's Reawaken Roadshow brings with it the Army of God. And they're calling people haters of Jesus because they don't see it their way. They're the Army of God. And those who are considered evil include government officials and Democrats. they're calling people pedophiles with no basis in fact at all. And by the way, you know, they're probably a 501c3. Now, a few weeks ago, I watched a documentary on QAnon, and the one preacher was taking in 85 grand a week. 85 grand, and probably just sticking it in his pocket. You know, multiply that times 50 weeks, it comes out to about $4 million probably. Here's demonic. Anybody that doesn't agree with them, and it's headed by General Flynn, by the way, of our famous "Why I Have to Pay His Pension is Beyond Me," because if anybody's un-American, he is. Thank you. I'll talk about this again. Have a good night.
Thank you. That exhausts the sign-in sheet for this evening. Would anyone else like to address council?
Good evening. Joanne Williams, city resident. I'm here this evening to speak on, once again, the CMC Geisinger expansion. About a month ago, some neighbors, along with myself, met with Mr. Ron Bear, one of the executors of GCMC. He told us of their plans, and he listened to our input. He explained about the parking garages. What he had said is the garages on the 400 block of Colfax would only be three stories high, some pocket parks, and Mr. Bear would ask the neighbors for some input on those parks. They would fix the lighting to LED lighting and motion lighting. He also said that traffic is a big thing and that a traffic study will be done. Now, quite a few neighbors asked me if I trusted them. And, well, I lived by this hospital for 68 years. Now, the noise, like I have said before, and the traffic are problems at times. But otherwise, you know, I thought back about things, and they haven't been a bad neighbor. And a few weeks ago, I had to go to the emergency room myself. And I worked in skilled nursing back in the 90s. And I was so upset when I was in that ER, and I saw patients on gurneys in hallways. They were well taken care of, but the need for this hospital is to grow. You know, I really sat down and I thought about it. Mr. Beer had explained to us the need to grow, and a few neighbors asked about building downtown. Mr. Beer made it clear that the hospital started up here in the hill years ago, and the plan was to stay put. He did elaborate about a new mental health facility that would be built down towards Pittston or Wilkes-Barre. Now, my main concern is the 200 block of Colfax. I own a home partially there, where if this does turn to Civic, they want to build an 8-story parking garage. So the only thing that I ask of CMC is to consider buying those. They've torn 3 down this week, on the 2 on the even. Next week they're going to tear the 3 on the odd side. So it leaves 5 houses left on the even side of Colfax, which is my homestead, partly owned by me. All I ask of CMC is to, you know, buy those houses, because how are we going to sell them, or how are we going to live there with an 8-story parking garage there? Let's see. It's been heartbreaking to see these houses coming down this week. They're very dear and near to my heart. But the time is now we need to focus on better health care and saving lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. First of all, just want to make a note that evidently the DPW has missed the South Manuka section at this point today. Usually they're there at the crack of anywhere between 6 a.m. and 8:30 in the morning, and as of driving over here, everything was still out there in our section.
So by the south side, do you mean on the other side of Davis?
Other side of Davis Street down to Music. I expect them to catch up on it. I just wanted to mention that for some reason they didn't get around to that section today. In section 3E, it notes that OECD wants to contract with the Institute to perform Scranton ARP programmatic evaluation services. And the scope of that is to make sure that the company who I thought we hired to plan out, to map, and to make sure that all the spending is done correctly and documented, it seems that we need another company to make sure that this company does the paperwork properly, because they're both doing the same services of making sure the documentation is in place, making sure money is assigned properly, and double checking it. So we're hiring two companies for the recovery plan to make sure the documents are in place. Seems a little odd that we need a company to watch a company, unless I'm in error. And you can respond back to that in fifth if you choose it. Under G, the Scranton Parking Authority. Do we really need a position for the Scranton Parking Authority? It's been handed over for the next, as of the contract, for the next 45 years. So we have a position out there for an authority that really has very limited power, because all of the spaces by the authority have been handed out to a contractor. So it seems like a redundant authority to keep up afloat and even to put anyone in that position. Under section I, the middle mile broadband program. Does any of you know what dark fiber is? Dark fiber has been put out there for many, many years in many cities. It was fiber optic that was laid by the government that is not being used. It was put through, for example, Baltimore has fiber running through it, but they've never connected it to local residents. One, because they don't want to interfere with places like Comcast, who serve them lots of money and hold a monopoly. But also the biggest problem with any fiber optic and running services is the last mile. That point from where the fiber optic hub is to people's house. And I understand that per this, what they're trying to do is supply the universities and 14 colleges. What's interesting about that, in that act, is if you go and take a look at 7D, the contract with the Institute for the Performance of Scranton American Rescue and Program Plan. It's very interesting that that group is 15 hospitals: Geisinger, Johnson, Keystone, Lackawanna College, Luzerne, Marywood, Misericordia, Penn State, University of Scranton, and the Wright Center. It's interesting that we are taking broadband for businesses and colleges, and we're putting the group to manage funding and overseeing it to the universities who it's going to serve. Not that there's a conflict of interest with a group of 15 universities deciding where broadband should go that will serve 15 universities. I don't see a conflict there. Last of all, going back to DPW, I hope in looking at the contract that we do have a chance you do have a chance to not rubber stamp it and ask them to put the change in there so that any unauthorized use of equipment is grounds for termination. We had the water, so we had the sprayer taken away and used as a private business. That should not be allowed under the contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council?
Norma Jeffries, Scranton resident. I was lost track of time because I wanted to get down here and hear the presentation that was going to be made. So I forgot my cell phone, I forgot my glasses, so I'm hoping that maybe you guys can help me out. One of the things I had on my cell phone that I wanted to talk about was the activity that's going on at Nail Park this weekend on Saturday. There's going to be for lack of another word, I'll say powwow with Indians, and they're going to give a history of the Indians and how they, their effect on Nail Park, and how it became, why it's Nail Park, why it's named Roaring Brook, and all of those things. And that's going to happen on Saturday. And there's also going to be a 5K race. This is a different event and all. And I had all that on my phone, but I left it at home.
So I know the 5K race is it's called the 5K. It's to benefit. It's a benefit for mental illness, and I think
Yes.
there will also be trunk or treating involved with that.
Yes, so the weather should be nice on Saturday, so maybe everyone could come up and support those two events that are going on up there on Saturday.
I'm going to see if I could find information on the other one.
Okay,
But
and maybe put it out there. Also, 2 weeks in a row, the caucuses have run very late, and I can turn over at 6:30 tomorrow morning, but there's a lot of people whose schedules are affected by the late running of the caucuses and how they affect council meetings as well. So I was just wondering, is it poured in concrete that it has to be at 5:45, or can it just be pushed up to 5:30? I wasn't sure why 5:45 and not 5:30.
So when I first got on council, the caucuses were only 30 minutes. We did extend them, I believe, a couple of years ago to the 45. I think there were a couple times when we did extend that out. But the problem there is we advertise that in the beginning of the year, and that's our average. So if we were to change our schedule to start earlier, we do have to take out a special advertisement.
Okay, so it's something that could be looked at come next year?
Yes.
Because, to anyone that's coming to council and wants to participate or hasn't, they have to wait until the caucuses are finished. And it's very good, the caucus, especially the one tonight, because,
Yes.
that's one of my hot buttons. For 4 years since I've been back in Scranton, I have my little tablet, and I took lots of notes. And it was good to hear that you're not going to, it's not going to be on the agenda to, did you say 3 more weeks?
So for the decriminalization of it, is that what you're talking? Or
Well, just all the things. I took a lot of notes here that I have questions on.
So the parking concession agreement is in sixth order tonight. So it would be up, assuming it passes sixth order tonight, it would be up for a final vote next week. The decriminalization part of it, which was the barnacle, where they were talking about putting barnacles on, we haven't even received that legislation yet. I think they just included that in as a here's what's coming.
Well, then how do I get all my questions answered before you're going to put it up for final?
On the concession agreement, we'll talk after and.
Yeah, because one of the things that the gentleman kept saying was about the lack of uses of the garages, and I don't feel secure in those garages at night. I don't know if they have cameras in there or if there's anyone there to oversee. It's very dark in those garages at night, and I'm not sure if that's what he was referring to, but he kept referring to the fact that the garages were not utilized as much as on-street parking, and I can see that because anytime I use them, I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I think the goal of that too is during the day to utilize more of the garage parking at the rates so that, it does open up some premium parking in areas where, if you were going to pick up lunch or stop in a store.
And one other question I have before I've got 22 seconds. Has there ever been a study on the businesses downtown and the effects of parking meters and the kiosks on their business? I know I like to go to I don't know if I should say this name or not, the Commonwealth down on Penn Avenue, and all those stores down there. And you've got to really watch. And I know that they have the app that you can put on your phone and everything, but it's one of those things I keep saying I'm going to do, and I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. But, as he was speaking, I was wondering, have we done a study on just how those kiosks have affected the businesses? Because I know I don't go down. If I'm going to meet the ladies, I said, oh, let's go out someplace where we can park.
I could reach out and ask them that. The kiosks are relatively new in compared to the parking meters, but we'll reach out and ask them that.
Okay, that's all
All
I
right,
have.
thank you.
I think the security question, too, if you could add that to the list.
Yes.
As a valid question.
Would anyone else like to address council?
I wasn't originally planning on speaking today or tonight. However, several people that have come up here to speak tonight have felt the need to emphasize the importance of the First Amendment and the right of individuals to speak regardless of however offensive their words may seem. And while it is true that city council officials and government officials are limited in their capacity to condone speech and chastise speech, I'm not a member of the government in any capacity. Those restrictions don't apply to me. So I'd like to use my time tonight to condemn the hatred and vitriol and disgust that has been directed towards immigrants in our community. These are people who have come here, some fleeing violence, some simply looking for opportunity to provide for themselves, to provide for their families. They want nothing more than to find a place where they can live their lives in peace. And that anyone feels the need to come up here and call them useless, disgusting. I'll keep my language clean tonight, but it frustrates me to no end, especially hearing it from someone who has been coming here for years to complain about matters that have no relevance whatsoever to the city council. To come up here and complain about immigrants after spending years coming to these meetings, complaining about matters like your ex-wife, complaining about alimony payments. Every single problem in your own life, you want to come here and complain to your city council as if that has anything whatsoever to do with them, and you want to blame immigrants for all of it as well. I'm under no illusions of the failures in our government's past to provide and protect the vulnerable. I'm not going to deny or pretend that the United States government didn't turn boats away when we should have been welcoming them. But the matter of fact is this, that never again means never again. And I will not allow that type of speech to go unchallenged under any circumstance. And for all those who wish to continue defending such speech under the guise of First Amendment rights, it's very obvious that you're just too cowardly to say it yourselves. You want to hide behind decorum because you're too afraid to be seen as hateful and ignorant, just like the speech of the person that you chose to support. You could have just as easily done the exact same thing that I'm doing right now, condemning that hatred, but you chose not to. So I just want to make this clear. This city and this country will never, under any circumstance, go back to whatever imaginary past that such people might think it once was. Some utopia where it was all white people living in harmony. No queers, no minorities, no immigrants. That future, that past will never be realized. That is all.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council?
Marie Schumacher. First, I want to congratulate the chairman and
Thank
his
you.
growing family. Can anybody up there tell me how many unfilled positions there are in the city?
At the moment, no. I know we got an update, what was it, a couple months ago? You
What
know,
was it then?
it's
Do you remember
fluid,
what it
right?
was?
So I don't have it right in front of me, but if I could
Okay.
find it for fifth order, I'll let you know.
Okay. The reason I ask is because somebody came up, and I think it might have been Tom last week, said if we haven't filled positions for a certain length of time, then maybe we should do away with those positions and put the money someplace else. Now, it looks as though we desperately need a lot of money, because if you read your 3B, I believe we are using overtime like, well, I believe it was $35,000 and change is all that was left at the end of September. So I believe you're supposed to have appropriated money before you spend it. So how are you guys going to do that? I think scraping up all that salary and fringe benefits that have not been utilized might be a good place to start. But I expect next week that you will have a transfer or whatever you have to do to cover what you think the overtime will be for the rest of the year. Either that or saying no more overtime, and we don't want to do that. That's our fire and police mostly. So look forward to that next week. And would it be possible for the five of you to get together and say the top 3 priorities that you think the city has for 2024?
2023?
Pardon?
2023 or 2024?
Both. Take them
Okay.
both. Because, we have planning to do, and we have prioritizations, and I don't think we're doing it right, to be honest. I spoke last week about, there's concern about Court Street, which is a quarter of a block at the most. Meanwhile, Lackawanna Avenue has the horrible wall that needs to be fixed, and the sidewalks. And how much are we, the combined amount for the Lackawanna County has and that we have?
I think we're about $800,000 short.
$800,000 short?
Yeah.
Don't we have enough of that money in the rescue plan?
So first off, I don't believe that a majority of the rescue plan money could be used there because it's not a low to moderate income area. I will double check that, but I believe that's the case there. So it can only be pulled from a certain pot, and that would be the lost revenue item. But I'll look into that. And also, Mr. Voldenberg, would we be able to follow up and see, because I don't think we ever got a response when we forwarded along that information.
I'll follow up, sir.
And I don't think that was even in the capital budget, fixing that. And, it looks terrible. 8A. We have to come to the point where that I think the state is being awfully generous with us, granting us all this time that we have to fulfill what we're supposed to do. So when are we going to have that brought back?
Hoping by the end of the year.
Okay, and, oh, speaking of the end of the year, you said storm...
8A, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you're talking about? Yes.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And, whoops, quickly, well, I'll hold it till next week. 'cause
No, but I know stormwater, I said hopefully by the end of the year for a stormwater
And
authority.
you said hopefully, you said it would be by the end of the year.
I was hopeful it was by the end of the year. We can't force anybody to do anything. We can make suggestions, right?
We'll see. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
Nothing at this time.
Dr. Rothchild, do you have any motions or comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or
I
comments?
have a few. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to make a motion to pull 5H from the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to pull 5H from the agenda. On the question? On the question, I know that Solicitor Gallagher brought up some issues with this that he'd like to discuss with the city's law department before we even introduce this. Solicitor Gallagher, would you like to expand on that at all? Or?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this doesn't have to be rebid. They want to amend the contract, but the bidding threshold is $19,400. If they want to include other services, I want to make sure that they don't have to rebid to include the services. And also, there was no fee schedule associated with it yet, so that was missing as well. So just a conversation with them. I'm sure it'll get ironed out by next week.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question?
So also on the question, I mean, I have the same concerns as Solicitor Gallagher. Just a small question is, who's completing these legislative cover sheets? I'm not sure if they're coming through the departments. I would imagine that's where they're coming from, but it seems like the last several we have been incomplete and have had many mistakes. So, Mr. Voldenberg, if we could just ask who completed the legislative cover sheet for 5H.
I will, Mr. Schuster.
Anyone else on the question?
Yes, I'm in total agreement with my colleague, Councilman Schuster. We've been receiving a lot of legislation that's sloppy, that's incomplete. I don't know who's proofreading this. I know that when our office, Mr. Voldenberg, does a fantastic job of doing this type of work for us, we would expect the same from our administration.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of pulling item 5H off the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Okay, second, so Mr. Derek Raines, he's a regular here at the council, and he's a champion for ADA. He lives over at 919 Monroe Avenue, has an issue that still is yet to be resolved that is affecting him more than ever. And this issue he's been bringing up for at least 2 years. 2 weeks ago, when we received a lot of rain, the county bus had difficulty picking up Mr. Raines in his driveway. The bus actually received some damage because the driver could not see what was beneath 6 inches of water going into his driveway because of this concern that remains for years. All right, the issue stems from the poor stormwater drainage at this part of Monroe. This issue was brought up multiple times. He told me that representatives from both the water company and the city have visited him. He said both were very nice. But the water company has claimed to Mr. Raines that it's not their responsibility but the city's. The city told Mr. Raines that the city has no resources or money to fix this. With all the ARP infrastructure money flying around, I have trouble understanding why this can't be corrected. Mr. Voldenberg, please send correspondence to the administration and request an answer in writing for the reason why this issue cannot be resolved.
I'll take care of that, sir.
Thank you. Second, so I got some more calls about Portnoy Associates. So and they're the collector of the delinquent trash fees, Scranton trash fees. They are sending out incorrect billing to residents and filing liens on taxpayers that are not delinquent. I repeat, not delinquent. So this guy told me that the Treasury Department is very helpful in fixing one incorrect bill, but he received another delinquent bill from 2020 a week later that is not owed. Now that the delinquent refuse trash fee database is back up and running, I would hate to see residents' names on here as delinquents in error. Mr. Voldenberg, please forward these concerns mentioned to Portnoy Associates. I think this was a problem last year, too. There wasn't a database up, but I know that people are being contacted for fees that they were not delinquent with. This should have been rectified by this year. Also, in addition to vandalism that recently occurred at the Falcon football field that I know the police are investigating, that issue, there's another issue that was brought to my attention, that someone is parking all of their equipment, like bobcats and dumpsters, or a dumpster on this property, which is ours. It's the Falcon field. So maybe we're doing work there. So Mr. Voldenberg, would you please inquire if the city's equipment located there is ours, doing work there, or if it's someone else is storing equipment without permission? Thank you. And next, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to reopen City Hall to the public and operate it as it was pre-pandemic, instituting, a proper security measure without the necessity of locked doors, barriers, or appointments needed for the public to complete city business.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. On the question?
On the question, just to expand on it, because I wanted to keep the motion short. City Hall is not just a municipal building, it's an historical landmark. 2, there are other ways to secure the building without infringing on people's right to their government. And 3, there's no other government building in the county in which you need to make an appointment.
Anyone else on the question?
So just on the question, I agree with my colleague here. I don't think any appointments should be necessary to gain access to this building, as well as to gain access to other city departments. These essential services and departments need to be open so all city residents can visit them in person and have walk-in services without appointments. That's all.
Anyone else on the question?
I'm all for opening City Hall, and I believe that this is the people's building. There's no two ways about that. I would like to see it open with some type of still paying attention to safety. Somehow, if we could set up a situation where, I don't know if there's a police officer that works in the building, constable, someone that could meet and greet whoever's coming in, state their business, what have you, and, permit them to come in, so that I am still concerned about the health, safety, and welfare of everyone working in this building. And I know that I want people to have access. I absolutely do. And they deserve to have access. It's just, I would just like to see the administration take some steps to try to improve how that happens. And quite frankly, for people that are already in here visiting City Hall, it would protect them as well. To just have some type of security measures that would, whether it's a meet and greet at the entrance to people state their business, what department they were planning to go at, or what have you, but just some type of procedures. I know that there was an incident up in Monroe County several years ago, and someone came in, and I believe someone was murdered at a council meeting, or and that's a concern. So my point here is this: there has to be a balance. I believe that we can open City Hall back to where it was, but still, provide some level of security. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question?
Just on the question with that, to speak to Mr. King, I do agree with him here on that one. Although City Council really doesn't run day-to-day operations, I think once City Hall is open, the administration could find a way to provide what it is that you're stating.
Anyone else on the question?
On the question, I'm in agreement with Councilman King. I also believe that City Hall should be open to the public without locked doors. However, I believe it's prudent to first figure out the security measures and determine those prior to doing that. If we don't have a plan in place for that, then that needs to happen first before opening it up, because that is a real concern.
Anyone else on the question?
Can I propose a friendly amendment to your motion?
And what would that be?
To request that within a week or two, that the administration come back with a plan to open City Hall that would meet some of the security measures that we requested. And, you know, if that plan is not received within a 2-week period, then we move forward with the original motion.
I guess, but administration requested the concerns by the people a few weeks ago. Nothing has progressed. We were asked who said it, why. We provided that information, didn't you, Mr. Voldenberg, to the administration?
That's
As to
correct,
who's
sir.
questioning why it should be reopened. We received nothing, no correspondence. That's why I brought it up, because what happens here is we're pacified for months, weeks, and then nothing occurs. So that's why I wanted to tighten the motion. And then the responsibility, like Mr. Schuster said, is we're not the day-to-day people, but we represent the people. The people want the building open. It's the administration's responsibility to figure out a way to do it with some safety measures.
So with that being said, I would only be, I think, favorable to that amendment if we can make it a week. I did pose this question 3 weeks ago, and as Mr. McAndrew was saying, I have not to receive an answer yet. So we have about 3 weeks that we've been waiting for security answers to the building. We haven't gotten them yet. I think possibly a week would be sufficient, getting it to us before our deadline for our next meeting.
I would be agreeable to that.
So there's a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
So just to clarify, that date would be
Next week.
Monday by noon?
Yeah.
Monday by noon.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can we ask Mr. Voldenberg if he could forward that information to the administration?
Yes.
And thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Frank, we'll touch base about that after the meeting, but could we also just send the follow-up questions to Mr. Travisani and also to Ben Anderson, who wasn't able to make it tonight, but represents ABM regarding the what security measures are taken, especially at night, in the parking garages, and also has there been any study or analysis on the effects the kiosks have had on downtown businesses?
I will, Mr. Donahue.
Thank you. And that's all I have for this evening.
5B for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton's Mayor Youth Art Committee to the Lackawanna County Community Project 2023 grant to benefit Scranton adolescents.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with PMA Management Corporation to provide interested parties with sufficient information to prepare and submit responses for consideration by the City of Scranton for third-party administration, self-insured workers' compensation, and heart and lung claims.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, the same with the other piece of legislation we got. It has a legislative cover letter that there appears to be some typos or autocorrect was on, and then the second page of that when it's under funding sources. I'm sure it's contained in the document behind it, but it's not contained in that legislative cover sheet, so we just have to be careful with these that we're making sure someone is proofreading them.
Anyone else on the question? We did receive some additional backup that will be added into the resolution to be posted for next week, just so everyone's aware, in terms of the, not only what the original bid was for that 77,000 per year, but that was negotiated down to 74, and that it is for a 3-year contract. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, a resolution authorizing the reappointment of Catherine J. Gilmartin, 1525 Caphouse Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, as a member of the Historical Architecture Review Board. Catherine Gilmartin's term on the Historic Architectural Review Board expired on October 11, 2022. Ms. Gilmartin's new 5-year term is effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire on October 11, 2027.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I just want to thank Ms. Katie Gilmartin for the great work she's been doing, and I'm thrilled that she's coming back and going to do more great things. I wish her the best.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution authorizing the reappointment of Todd Poosley, 1137 Rundle Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as a member of the Planning Commission. Mr. Poosley is reappointed for an additional 4-year term effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire on December 31st, 2026. Mr. Poosley's current term expires on December 31st, 2022.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution authorizing appointment of Keisha Williams, 518 East Elm Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18505, as a member of the Human Relations Commission, replacing Tara Mann Shanker, whose term expires October 14, 2022. Ms. Williams' 5-year term is effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire October 14, 2027.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution appointment of Dwayne J. Heisler, 526 North Webster Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, as a member of the Board of the Scranton Parking Authority, effective upon execution of the resolution. Mr. Heisler will be replacing Michael S. Woodard, who resigned December 19, 2021. Mr. Heisler will fill the unexpired term of Micah Woodward, whose term is scheduled to expire on June 1, 2025.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I know was brought up tonight, a question regarding why the parking authority still exists. Technically, they still own the parking system. The system is leased out to NDC as a concession agreement, so they still do technically own it, and they own the assets to it. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution, amending file resolution number 15, 2022, a resolution entitled Amending file.
Mr. Voldenberg, I apologize, we pulled that off the.
5I for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to the Middle Mile Broadband Program through the National Telecommunications and Information Administration for funding to improve the city's infrastructure up to $2,450,000.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question?
On the question, I had inquired today, I was looking at this one, I couldn't find where the match was coming from, like was it in the budget or what have you. So I sent an email to Mr. Voldenberg, and he inquired, and Eileen Cipriani indicated that ARPA funds would be used for the match.
Anyone else on the question?
Second question was, it was picked up, and we talked about it earlier, about an extension, so there was a date that seems to have passed. Did we get an extension for this grant? If that could be asked Mr. Voldenberg as well.
I will, sir.
Anyone else on the question?
On the question, it was mentioned during public comment about this helping the local colleges and universities. And this is something that's going to help the whole city. It'll help neighborhoods, it'll help businesses, if we have more options for this cable to go towards. So I think that this would be great if we're able to get this funding. It'll give some more options than just having Comcast service the area. It'll bring some more competition to the city of Scranton and options for the people. Thank you.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, filed to Council Number 26, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into an agreement with Local Lodge 2305 of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, AFL-CIO.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6B, reading by title, filed to Council Number 27, 2022, an ordinance amending file to Council Number 37 of 2016, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into concession agreements with Community Development Properties Scranton, Inc., with respect to metered parking in the city of Scranton and the garages owned by the Parking Authority of the city of Scranton, Pennsylvania, pursuant to the Scranton Metered Parking System Concession and Services Agreement and Scranton Parking Facilities System Concession and Lease Agreement, and to authorize certain actions and ancillary agreements contemplated by the Metered System Concession Agreement and by the Facilities Concession Agreement, as amended by file to Council Number 23, 2018, to authorize the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into the Third Amendment to Concession and Lease Agreement to amend Article 2, Section 2.1, to extend the term to 45 years from date of execution, Article 7, Section 7.1, to adopt a new rate schedule, Article 4, to authorize application for American Rescue Plan funds for capital improvements, and Exhibit G, to update the lists of meter closure dates to include Juneteenth.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, filed to Council Number 24, 2022, authorizing the City of Scranton to accept payment from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for one right-of-way and one temporary construction easement.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
Chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, file the Council Number 25, 2022, authorizing the City of Scranton to accept payment from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for 2 rights-of-way and 2 temporary construction easements.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, Resolution Number 131, 2022, authorizing the City Council of Scranton and Mayor to send a letter of support for passage of the Respect for Marriage Act to the United States Senate.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I explained this piece of legislation last week, that this is coming to us as a letter to help encourage the U.S. Senate in order to pass this piece of legislation and to enshrine DOMA and same-sex marriage laws into federal law based on the Supreme Court decision that was made back in 2015. And this would ultimately help to continue to protect same-sex marriage rights and LGBTQ rights within the United States, which are at risk, as we could tell with what happened with Roe v. Wade this year. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 132, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with the Institute to perform Scranton American Rescue Plan programmatic evaluation services.
What is the recommendation for the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E, previously tabled, Resolution Number 127, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Fitch & Associates to perform a feasibility study for emergency management services within the city of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question? On the question, we did table this to get clarification on how long this contract would be awarded for, and we did receive an email back last week that it was for 9 months. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
Eighth order, 8A, file the Council Number 9, 2022.
This piece of legislation is the updated zoning ordinance. It has been tabled to allow for additional input, any amendments, and/or any changes. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.